Okay, time for some more RBT practice questions. If you like these videos, like and subscribe. It really helps. Today, we're going to go over a bunch of graphing questions, okay, in addition to other questions, but I'm getting a lot of questions about graphing on the RBT exam. I'm here to tell you that graphing on the RBT exam is really easy. It's really straightforward. It's questions you're going to get right. I don't want you to worry about them, and I'm going to show you why, okay? Don't worry about graphing. We're going to go over it, okay? If you want our materials, check out our website. They'll be in the comments below. Other than that, let's get going. So this is the type of graphing question you might get. What type of graph is this? Okay. And as we know from our other videos and our study guides, the most common type of graph in ABA is a line graph. And this right here is a line graph. Okay. We have our lines, we have connected data points. Okay. We have data trends. Okay. It looks different because it's separated by this bar, which we'll talk about, but that's all it is. That's how straightforward the graphing questions will be. Okay. What type of graph is this? This is a line graph. Okay. As long as you can answer that kind of thing, it's very easy. Okay. This is what you're going to see as an RBT the most, are these line graphs, graphing our behavior, graphing the data we're taking. Okay. So let's do another one. What is on the x-axis? This is another question they'll ask. Okay. They like to ask about what type of graph you're looking at. And then they like to ask about the x-axis and the y-axis. What does that mean for you? As long as you know what the x-axis is and what the y-axis is, you can answer these questions, okay? So the x-axis is down here, right? And the y-axis is right here. So this horizontal thing is the x-axis, vertical is y, okay? And in ABA, this is how it goes on line graphs. On your x-axis, you have your time, so your days, your sessions, your minutes, your hours. On the y-axis, okay, you have your behavior. It's that straightforward. So if they ask you a question like, what is on the x-axis? Well, what do you think is on the x-axis, right? It's your time. So even if this label wasn't here, you would still know your time is down here. Now, the label is here, so we know day, okay? But let's say day wasn't there. And you would just go look for time on your answer choices, okay? So remember, x-axis is down here. It's your time. Y-axis is vertical. It's on the left. Okay, it's your behaviors. Okay, so it's really that straightforward, right? That's all you really need to know for graphing. Okay. Okay, we're gonna do a few more graphing questions, but let's kind of jump back and forth. Okay, so a client's mom reports to you that Abby tried 5 new foods since last session. What type of measurement is this? Okay, measurement question. If you've been following along, if you've got our materials, if you've been watching the videos, this should be easy question, okay? I don't want you spending a lot of time on these questions. You should be getting these immediately, okay? So Abby tried 5 new foods. What are we doing here, right? We're just counting how many foods she has, right? So immediately we think frequency. Now, what's the only thing that would change that, okay, is if we had a time component. Since last session, we don't know how long that was. That's not an actual time component, okay? That could be a day, it could be a month, it could be a year, okay? So we don't know the time component. Therefore, it has to be frequency. Now, again, rate's not even an option, so this is a very easy question, okay? That's how quickly you should be getting these, okay? What are we measuring, okay? We're measuring her trying new foods. How are we measuring it? By counting it, okay? There's no time, frequency. Right? Remember, the only time frequency becomes rate is when there's a time component, okay? But this is just a count, therefore it's frequency. Okay, another graphing question, same graph. What did we just talk about? What is on the y-axis? Okay, remember, where's your y-axis? Think about it. Okay, very straightforward. Your y-axis is your behaviors. In this case, it's labeled for you, number of hits. It's really that simple, right? What's on our x-axis? The day. Okay. Nothing to it, right? Very straightforward. Okay. You guys got this. Very straightforward. All right. Now, a little trickier. Okay. Let's say they ask you about the actual data, about the actual chart. Now we need to start thinking about what's on our chart. Okay. This would be the absolute hardest question they would ask you about data. Okay. And it's not difficult, right? So, what are the first 4 days considered? Let's go to our time. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're talking about these days, okay? Now, this is a line graph, but it's separated by this bar. What is that bar? Okay, that bar is a phase change line or a condition change line. And there is a distinction between the two, but for the sake of the argument, okay, we're changing, okay, from one part of the intervention to the next. And this line is separating it, okay? That's all it's doing. So you notice how these data points are connected. There's a break, and then these data points are connected. These are two separate points, okay, in the intervention. So what are the first points of data considered, all right, in this chart? Okay, before intervention starts, okay, if this is your intervention, before starts, what is that considered? Now, this is a definition and a term you should know, but what is it called when we take data before intervention starts? Okay, that would be baseline data, right? So A is right. Remember, always read your questions or always read your answers. This is why, okay? So A is right. B, before intervention. B is also right. Okay, baseline just means before intervention. C, stable data. Is this data stable? Yes, right? It's not jumping all over the place. Okay, it's very consistent. Therefore, it's stable. Okay, so what's the answer? D, all of the above. Now, in baseline, you're really looking for steady data. Okay, you don't want to be moving from baseline to intervention when your data is increasing, okay, or decreasing, right? You're really looking for stable data in baseline. But besides that, just remember this line is just separating two parts of the intervention, and before the intervention is baseline. So right here is our baseline data. Right here, okay, this would be our intervention. Okay, all of the above. If your client goes an entire week without calling his brother's names, he earns a trip to GameWorks. What reinforcement procedure is this? Okay, so we have our answers down here: DRA, DRO, negative reinforcement, DRI. Okay, so this is a differential reinforcement question. Okay, so remember our options. What are we looking at? DRO is looking at what? The absence of a behavior. So behavior not happening. DRA and DRI, okay, we're looking at two behaviors, and we're looking to reinforce a different behavior. Okay, so in this question, what are we trying to look at? We're trying to get our client to not call his brother names. So is that trying to see an absence or a lack of behavior, or are we trying to promote a different behavior? Well, we're trying to promote an absence of a behavior. We don't want him to call him names. So we want to reinforce him, okay, for not calling his brother names. Therefore, it's a DRO, right? DRO, you can remember it as DR0, okay? So we want 0 instances of him calling his brother names. Whenever it's not happening, we're going to reinforce, okay? DRA, DRI, we need two separate behaviors, okay? So we'd be looking to replace him calling his brother names with something else, but we're not doing that in this situation. We're just reinforcing him for not doing something. Therefore, DRO. What behavior is the most observable and measurable? Again, a question you should get very quickly, all right, if you've been studying. So let's look at our answer choices. Your client fails a math test due to lack of effort. Why is this out? Lack of effort, okay, the mentalism. We can't measure that. We can't observe effort, okay? We can't observe that. So A is out. You fall asleep in class because you're tired. Well, maybe every time you fall asleep in class, the teacher wakes you up and you get attention. So maybe you try to fall asleep because the function is attention, not necessarily because you're tired, right? We can't observe and we can't measure tired. B is out. C, you fall asleep in class. This one is not the greatest answer in the world, right? But it's the most straightforward so far, right? You're asleep. Okay, we observe that, we measure that. Okay, there's no other, we're not attributing a cause to it, right? We're just seeing you fall asleep, and then we observe it and we measure it. So C looks pretty good. Let's read D. Your client was stressed. Nope, out, right? We're not observing stress. We're not measuring stress. That D is completely out, okay? The only good enough answer here is C, okay? Not the best answer in the world because you could argue this one, But in this case, C is the best answer. They want the best answer. Pick C. Timmy pokes Bobby 5 times a minute during a car ride. Mom hands him the Nintendo Switch and praises him when he is playing the Switch. What is mom implementing? Okay, another differential reinforcement question. Let's go back. Okay, what is DRO? Looking for the absence of a behavior. Okay, DRI, DRA, looking at 2 different behaviors. Okay, what are we looking at here? We're looking at Timmy poking Bobby. Okay, and then Timmy getting praised when he plays the Nintendo Switch. So 2 separate behaviors, right? What are we trying to do? We're trying to get him to play the Nintendo Switch instead of poke his brother, okay? So we know DRO is out, right? What about DRI, DRA? So the next question you need to ask, right? Can these behaviors happen at the same time? Can he play the Nintendo Switch, okay, which you need 2 hands for, and poke his brother? No, right? Those are incompatible. Therefore, what is the answer? DRI, okay? That's the process you should go through when doing differential reinforcement questions. Is it an absence of behavior, or are we looking at replacement behaviors or 2 different behaviors? If it's 2 different, can those happen at the same time? If yes, DRI. If no, if they can't happen at the same time, DRI. They can, DRA. Now, they tried to trick you here, right? Because they put this measurement in 5 times a minute, okay? So that is rate, okay, but it's not a measurement question, right? So don't be confused and get down here and be like, oh no, there's no measurement. What are they asking, right? They're not asking about the measurement. They're asking about the reinforcement procedure, okay? So be careful. Reinforcing gradual changes in behavior. So we've used this question before, but I want to make sure, it's maintaining, right? We want to maintain behavior. Reinforcing gradual changes in behavior. This is just a definition question, okay? If you've been studying your definitions, you should know it. Shaping. Ooh, this is a good ABA question, okay? If you understand this question, you're really starting to get it, okay? You were bitten by a mosquito. The bite starts to itch, so you scratch it. What are you implementing? So think about it. Think about our ABC, right? The antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. What is the antecedent? Okay. The antecedent is the bite starts to itch. Okay. What is your behavior? You scratch it. What is the consequence? The scratch goes away. Okay. So what are you going to do in the future when you get an itch? You're going to scratch it. So that behavior maintains and increases in the future. What does that tell you? When a behavior increases or maintains, what kind of reinforcement is that? Or what are we implementing? Reinforcement. So we know it has to be A or B. Now, this is where people get confused, right? Are you adding or taking something away, right? People say, well, I'm adding the scratch. Well, no, you're not, right? Your behavior is the scratch. The consequence, right, is the scratch goes away. You're removing the scratch. And when we remove something, what is that? Negative reinforcement. If you understand this question and how ABC works, the antecedent behavior consequence, okay, that means you're really starting to understand, right, the basics of ABA, right? So this is an excellent question. Make sure you really understand this, okay? Because if you do, you're well on your way to doing very well on the exam, okay? It's a really good question. Your client elopes 5 times per hour. What does this describe? So remember, what are we doing? Okay, it's the measurement question. Your client elopes 5 times. Okay, we're counting. So frequency, is there a time component per hour? Yes. That means what? Rate. Okay, so this is how quickly you should be doing these questions. They're very easy questions, right? If you've been studying. What is my measurement? Okay, I'm counting. Okay, I know it's frequency. Now, is there time? Yes. So frequency over time, rate. Straightforward. Okay, good. That wraps it up today. Okay, more questions coming next week. Like, subscribe, check out the other videos. I appreciate your support, and study hard.